California versus Texas, the redistricting battle that could reshape Congress. Newsom's bold move. Imagine a scenario where the very foundations of our democracy are being threatened and the balance of power in Congress hangs in a balance. This is exactly what's happening in California, where Democrats, led by Governor Gavin Newsom, are considering a drastic move to redraw the state's congressional districts in a bid to reduce the number of Republican seats. But here's the catch. This move could have far-reaching consequences, sparking a national controversy over the fate of the country's political landscape. The proposal is a direct response to the actions of GOP leaders in Texas, who are attempting to unseat Democratic representatives at the behest of President Trump. As Matt Rexroad, a Republican redistricting expert, aptly puts it, once we get to the point where we're just doing random redistricting after every election, redistricting won't be used as a tool to reflect voter interests. It will be used to just bludgeon minority political interests, whether it be Republican or Democrat, after every election. Newsom has already begun talks with Democratic legislative leaders to reconfigure California's congressional district boundaries before the 2026 election, which would likely require a statewide ballot measure to scrap or temporarily pause the independent California Citizens Redistricting Commission. This commission was created in 2010 to take partisan politics out of the redistricting process, with the goal of drawing congressional districts based on logical geography, shared interests, and representation for minority communities. However, if California Democrats decide to pursue partisan redistricting, it could lead to a situation where several GOP incumbents become vulnerable, and the state's congressional districts are reconfigured to increase the share of Democratic voters in districts currently represented by Republicans. Redistricting experts in both parties agree that this move would have significant consequences, with some warning that it could lead to a broken system where lines are redrawn after every election to benefit whichever party controls the White House or various legislative bodies. And this is the part most people miss: the potential unintended consequences of such a move, including weakening safe Republican districts in Texas and leading to a gerrymandering arms race between states. As Conyers Davis, global director of the USC Schwarzenegger Institute, notes, "We're in a scary position with all this talk of this gerrymandering arms race between Texas and California. It's really a race to the bottom for voters in both states and the entire country as a whole." The controversy surrounding this issue is palpable, with some arguing that it's a necessary move to protect Democratic interests, while others see it as a blatant attempt to undermine the democratic process. As Rusty Hicks, chairman of the California Democratic Party, puts it, Trump and Republicans from DC to Texas are attempting to rewrite the rules of our democracy. With so much at stake, California may be left with little choice but to fight fire with fire to protect and preserve our democracy. But here's where it gets controversial. Is this move really necessary? Or is it just a cynical attempt to gain a political advantage? Should California Democrats be pursuing partisan redistricting, or should they be focusing on other ways to promote their interests? The answer to this question is not clear-cut, and it's likely to spark a heated debate in the coming months. As we consider the implications of this move, we have to ask ourselves, what does the future of our democracy look like if we allow partisan politics to dictate the redistricting process? Will we see a never-ending cycle of gerrymandering and retaliation? Or can we find a way to put the interests of voters above those of political parties? The fate of our democracy hangs in the balance, and it's up to us to decide what kind of political landscape we want to create. So, we want to hear from you. Do you think California Democrats should pursue partisan redistricting? Or do you think it's a mistake? Share your thoughts in the comments below. California's redistricting battle. Newsom takes on Texas's Republican maps. Imagine a world where every vote truly counts, where politicians can't manipulate district lines to secure their own power. That's the promise of independent redistricting commissions, and it's why what's happening in California and Texas right now is so crucial and controversial. As Texas begins a high-stakes redistricting process aimed at solidifying Republican control of the House, Governor Gavin Newsom is gearing up for a Democratic counterattack in California. But standing in Newsom's way is a major obstacle: California's Independent Redistricting Commission, a model for the nation. What started as a distant possibility ahead of the 2026 midterms has now escalated into a full-blown political showdown that could reshape the balance of power in Congress. Newsom, speaking alongside Democratic lawmakers from Texas, warned that everything is at stake if Democrats fail to reclaim the House. If we don't put a stake into the heart of this administration, there may not be an election in 2028, he declared, highlighting the urgency of the situation. But how can California redraw its maps when the state constitution protects the commission? In 2008, California voters narrowly approved a constitutional amendment, stripping legislators of their power to draw district lines. 2 years later, they overwhelmingly expanded the commission's authority to include congressional maps. This independent commission has been hailed as a national model for ending partisan gerrymandering and fostering competitive elections. Yet Newsom is exploring unconventional options to bypass the commission if Texas moves forward with its redistricting plans. The governor's plan could involve calling a special election, but details are still being discussed. Would voters approve a new map, or would they create an entirely new process? Would the commission be temporarily or permanently removed? This is a fluid conversation, Newsom admitted. We're gaming all those things out. The controversy deepens when we consider the timing. The most recent maps were drawn after the 2020 census and took effect in 2022. However, last month, former President Donald Trump's political team began pressuring Republican leaders in Texas to redraw district lines and create additional GOP seats. This move comes as Republicans hold a narrow 5-seat majority in the House, leaving little room for error. Despite opposition from Republicans in the Texas congressional delegation, Governor Greg Abbott pulled a special session to redraw the maps, targeting 4 Democratic seats in the Dallas and Houston areas. The move has sparked outrage among Democrats, who see it as a power grab. But while party leaders voice their outrage, they face limited options to fight back. Many Democratic states, including California, New York, and New Jersey, rely on independent commissions to draw their congressional districts. Newsom has been vocal about his plans to sidestep California's commission if Texas moves forward. However, this plan is fraught with legal and political risks. Even some of Newsom's fellow Democrats have expressed skepticism about the precedent it would set. Assemblymember Alex Lee, whose vote may be needed to place a measure on the ballot, has voiced concerns. Common Cause California, a non-profit advocating for government in the public interest, has criticized the move as a dangerous move that puts our state's democracy on the line. The most likely route for Newsom to redraw California's maps is through a special election, asking voters to overturn the independent commission. However, the commission remains highly popular with voters, and Newsom may need to make concessions, such as a temporary pause that resumes the independent redistricting process in 2031. As this high-stakes battle unfolds, one question remains: can Democrats maintain the momentum to turn out the motivated electorate in an unusual special election? It's like lightning in a bottle right now, said Paul Mitchell, a Democratic redistricting consultant. Are they going to be able to keep this a front-burner issue for people? What do you think? Is Newsom's plan a necessary move to protect democracy, or a dangerous precedent that could undermine the independence of redistricting commissions? Let us know in the comments.